Hello guys and welcome back to the F1 Tube YouTube channel, and in today's video I will be talking about Antonio Giovinazzi and why, in my opinion, he has to beat his teammate Kimi Raikkonen during the 2020 Formula 1 season if he wants to sustain a future in Formula 1. And without a further ado guys, let's get straight into the topic of this video. Now, Antonio Giovinazzi is entering his second full season in Formula 1, and it's fair to say that his first full season in the sport was a bit up and down. He was making mistakes early on, but as the season progressed, Giovinazzi ironed out those mistakes and he was more of a match for his teammates. And even if the Alfa Romeo was lurking at the back of the midfield, Giovinazzi was still very competitive against his vastly experienced teammate. That being, of course, Kimi Raikkonen. However, even though Giovinazzi did mature as the season went on, one would argue that the Italian was lucky to have a seat for the 2020 season, especially when you consider a driver of Nico Hülkenberg's quality was left without a drive for this year. Now, I am a big fan of Nico Hülkenberg, and I am personally gutted to see the German leave the F1 grid for at least 2020. However, I am not displeased at the fact that Giovinazzi is still driving in Formula 1, as I personally believe he needs to be given the chance for him to grow as a driver. Of course, Giovinazzi is entering his second full season in Formula 1, and his teammate Kimi Raikkonen is entering what is about, let me think, his 17th or 18th season in Formula 1, so we can definitely note the experience levels between the two. However, Giovinazzi, his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, is now in his 40s, and I personally believe to ensure that he has an F1 future, he needs to beat the Iceman. As good of a driver as Kimi Raikkonen is, it's not a good look if you're consistently losing to a driver who is in their 40s. By the age of 40, you would have thought your attributes would have diminished, and therefore it makes it easier for your competitors to defeat them. So if Giovinazzi is losing to Raikkonen again in 2020, serious questions need to arise over the Italian's future in the sport, as I struggle to believe that this is Kimi at his peak. He isn't at his peak. He's way past his best times. Now, yes, I know experience can aid a driver. However, this is more about developing a car than driving on the track. And as Gio builds more experience in Formula 1, the more that this point becomes invalid. Look, he should be more comfortable with the team this year. He should be more on it. He should be making less mistakes, and I do expect a lot of improvements from the Italian this year. Now, perhaps I do need to cut Giovinazzi a bit of slack here, because I am reflecting upon his first full season in Formula 1, which is never going to be your best. Nonetheless, let's face the facts. He was convincingly outqualified, outraced, and he scored 29 points less than his teammates. That's not great, is it? But then you flip the script and you do note that Antonio did score more points than Kimi in the second half of the season, so it does show that there was progress being made by him. Now, I'm not going to try and devise a bible of excuses to why Giovinazzi didn't meet some people's expectations from last season. However, I do believe that he did enter Formula 1 probably a bit too late for his liking. In Gio's rookie season in GP2, which is now known as Formula 2, he finished runner-up to Pierre Gasly in that championship. And for a rookie in that category, taking the title fight down to the wire, I think that season it probably should have attracted a lot more F1 teams, not the top-notch F1 teams for a full-time seat. However, you would have thought the midfield teams would have been looking out for a driver of that pedigree almost. No, he wasn't a Charles Leclerc, a Lewis Hamilton, a Sebastian Vettel, a Max Verstappen, but he did definitely have something about him. But teams definitely would have been put off Giovinazzi after the Italian was given 2 chances in 2017 after he filled in for the injured Pascal Wehrlein. He drove 2 races for Sauber, and although his first race in Australia was decent, he completely binned it in China, crashing twice during that weekend. And of course, Giovinazzi didn't race in F1 again until last year. And when you're passing that time in your career where you really need to be getting into these either racing series or Formula 1, the pinnacle of motorsport, when you're missing out on those drives, you're not going to be exactly improving as a driver, and I do believe this impacted Giovinazzi quite a bit. In 2020 for 2021, Gio doesn't necessarily have to prove to Alfa Romeo that he deserves to be in F1, but with how dramatic and how manic the driver market may be going into 2021, Giovinazzi will want to prove to other teams that he deserves to be in the sport. I genuinely believe he would be a decent fit for the Haas team for 2021. They are powered by Ferrari, which Giovinazzi obviously has ties to, and of course Haas basically have Dallara DNA. Dallara make a lot of Haas's chassis parts. So when you think about Dallara, you see them as an Italian manufacturer, and of course Giovinazzi is Italian, so I wouldn't say it's hand in hand, but it would help Gio quite a bit in getting that seat if it was to come. Another reason for me saying that Gio has to prove to other teams that he belongs in Formula 1 is that I genuinely can see Robert Schwartzman and Mick Schumacher hunting the Italian down for that second Alfa Romeo seat if Kimi Raikkonen was to stay. If Schwartzman and Schumacher perform very highly in F2 in this upcoming season, then Giovinazzi's seat at Alfa Romeo is majorly under threat. Of course, Ferrari will want the best and quickest drivers in their seats. However, it's no lie that Ferrari urgently want Schumacher in Formula 1. The name Schumacher is synonymous with Ferrari, especially from the 21st century. So then, to conclude, Giovinazzi, in my opinion, if he wants to sustain not necessarily a long-term future in Formula 1, but if he wants to stay in Formula 1 for the next few years, he needs to convincingly defeat Kimi Raikkonen in their qualifying head-to-head battles, race head-to-head battles, and he definitely needs to finish ahead in the World Drivers' Championship standings, as it will not look good on him if he loses to someone who will be 41 by the end of this year. But guys, that is it for today's video. Please like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the F1 Tube YouTube channel for more content like this. But until next time guys, see you later.